Hi, I'm Seren. My sister looked me in the eyes and said, "This table is for family." Then she laughed, as if that seat didn't hold years of silence I'd swallowed to stay in their circle. They thought I'd sit quietly, again, pay the bill, shrink, smile. But that night, something snapped. They had no idea what was coming when I finally said no. Want to know what really happened when I stood up from that chair and didn't sit back down? The exiled seat. I should have said no. I told myself that the entire drive over. With both hands clenched on the steering wheel, I rehearsed a dozen ways to back out. Fake an emergency, pretend I had COVID, claim the car broke down. But I didn't. Because the guilt in my mother's voice wasn't something I could shake off like dust from my coat. So there I was, in front of the Dominion Flame, a steakhouse so upscale even the air smelled smug. I stood outside for a second too long. The late summer heat of Austin hadn't fully settled into evening yet. My palms were already damp, heart tapping like a warning. I could still leave, get back in the car, drive home, pretend I never saw her text. But I didn't. The maitre d' recognized the name and led me in. And there they were, already seated at a long table near the center, under a massive chandelier. I saw my cousin Darian first, his grin spreading like oil across his face. Elira sat next to him, in a white dress a size too small and a laugh a pitch too high. My mom was sandwiched between two aunts, nodding politely. No one noticed me for a full 3 seconds. Then Darian did. "Look who finally decided to show up," he called out, his voice loud enough to turn heads. "I was starting to think we weren't important enough for her anymore." I forced a smile. "Good evening." I took a step toward an empty chair at the end of the table, trying to sit without making a scene. But Elira's voice sliced in. She said, shaking her head with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "That seat's for Uncle Leo, you know, family." The word dropped like ice water down my back. Darian leaned forward, pushing his chair slightly, closing off the space. "Yeah, we're packed in tonight. You might want to grab something from the other table over there." He gestured behind me without even glancing. It wasn't a joke. The others weren't laughing. My mother looked away. I just stood there. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. I scanned the table, every chair filled with people I used to build pillow forts with, cry in front of, love. And now, not even room for me to sit. My pulse thudded hard in my ears. But I didn't say anything, not yet. I turned, walked toward an empty table, and dragged a chair back across the floor. The screech of metal legs over marble echoed too loudly, but I didn't stop. I set it just beside their table, not quite in, not quite out. Close enough to hear them, too far to be part of them. I sat down, ordered a black coffee, and folded my hands in my lap. My shoulders itched with the weight of every sideways glance in the room. The waiter gave me a curious look. I gave him nothing back. Across from me, Elira raised her glass. "To togetherness," she said with a smirk. "Some of us value it." They all laughed. Not everyone, but enough. Darian nudged someone and whispered something I didn't catch. I watched the condensation on my glass bead up and run like little escapes. I kept my face unreadable, because if I blinked too long, I'd give myself away. It had always been this way. When we were kids, I was the quiet one, the bookworm, the moody cousin who didn't want to play dress-up or talk about boys. I didn't drink in high school, didn't party in college. I built a life instead. Quietly, carefully, one piece at a time, and they never noticed until they needed something. Now that I'd built a company worth 7 figures and landed in a Forbes local feature, I was suddenly interesting again. But not for who I was, only for what I could give. They didn't say that, of course. No one ever says it out loud. That would be too honest. Instead, they play games like this, like musical chairs with dignity. I watched as they passed bread, laughed at stories, clinked glasses. No one asked me anything. No one cared what I'd been up to. The table might as well have been made of glass, and I was the smudge they refused to wipe clean. Then came the moment that sealed it. Darian made a joke, something about some people forgetting their roots once they have a little cash. And Elira, not missing a beat, threw her head back and laughed. She turned toward me, mid-laugh, eyes locking with mine. And she didn't flinch. She smiled wider. That wasn't laughter. That was a challenge. I sat still, my jaw clenched tight behind a calm expression. I took a sip of my coffee and let it burn on the way down. Better that than letting them see how much it all still hurt. This wasn't awkward. It was war. A plate full of expectations. I didn't flinch. Not on the outside. But inside, I felt something shift. Like a thread pulled too tight, finally starting to snap. Darian's jab. Elira's laugh. That look in her eyes. It was all part of the same script I'd seen before. But this time, I wasn't watching from the wings. They'd shoved me center stage, and I knew my role. The outsider with the wallet. A waiter appeared with a smile that felt rehearsed. Would you all like to see the dinner menus now? Darian sat up straighter and clapped his hands once. Let's do it, I'm starving. Menus were handed out like invitations to a performance. Oversized, leather-bound, designed to impress. Darian opened his dramatically, glancing toward Elira as if they were co-stars in a show only they understood. This place has Wagyu, right? He asked, flipping pages like he already knew the answer. I'll take that, medium rare, and let's do lobster too. He barely paused before shutting the menu with a thud. Oh, and a bottle of that Cabernet we had at Dad's birthday. Elira giggled. You're so predictable. But yeah, get one for the table. My eyes hadn't left my menu. Not because I was reading, but because I didn't want to meet their stares. I already knew what was happening. They hadn't asked me what I wanted. They didn't care. This wasn't about food. It was a declaration of entitlement, of assumption. I was the designated provider, seated on the fringe, yet expected to bankroll the entire fantasy. I glanced up and caught Darian's smirk. You good with that, Serene? He asked, voice smooth like he was doing me a favor by including me in the decision. I blinked once. Sure, sounds festive. He grinned wider. Knew you'd be cool. You always come through. Elira turned to the others. We should make tonight count. It's not every day we're all together. Rachel chimed in. Yeah, and if we're gonna celebrate, we better do it right. Might as well make it memorable. The rest of the table murmured in agreement. One of my uncles chuckled. Long as someone picks up the check. I froze, just for a second. And then came the kicker. Harlan leaned forward, his voice louder than necessary. Oh, come on. It's not like Seren can't handle it. She makes more than the rest of us put together. Laughter bubbled up around the table. Not loud, just enough to sting. That's right, Rachel added. She's our little tech queen now. Let her treat us, Elira said, tilting her head like it was the most natural thing in the world. That's what family's for, right? My fingers curled slightly under the tablecloth. They weren't even pretending to be subtle anymore. What started as snide remarks had evolved into a full-on group performance. The room was dim, but I could see every glint of satisfaction in their eyes, like they'd rehearsed this and couldn't wait to hit their lines. I could have said something then. I could have called it out. But I didn't. Instead, I gave a half smile and raised my coffee cup like a toast. To family, I said. They clinked their glasses, celebrating the punchline, not realizing I was rewriting the story in real time. Because I wasn't mad. Not yet. What I felt was precision. They thought they had me pegged, that I'd sit quietly, take the hits, and pay for the pleasure. They had no idea what I was planning. The rest of dinner passed in fragments. Appetizers arrived, crab cakes, truffle fries, foie gras. The conversation blurred, all surface-level chatter, with undercurrents of comparison, judgment, and performance. No one asked about my work. No one mentioned the startup I'd sold. No one said my name unless it followed a joke. I sat there, quietly calculating, watching them pour wine, pass plates, make toasts. They weren't trying to connect. They were trying to impress each other and punish me at the same time. And I let them. Because the more they talked, the more obvious it became. They weren't just trying to make me pay the bill. They were making me earn the right to be here. I heard Rachel laugh again. Let's not skip dessert. Get the sampler. Seren's got it. Darian raised an eyebrow. Yeah, let's do 3 of each. Might as well go all in. The waiter nodded, not even checking with me. The assumption was complete. I took a long breath. They thought they were clever. Let them think that. Let them dig the hole. I'd be the one handing them the shovel. The one who never spoke up. I watched them revel in their own performance. Every clink of a glass. Every fake laugh like a metronome keeping time for their manipulation. They thought they were winning. But what they didn't see was me scanning the table. Not for food, not for kindness. I was searching for one face. The only one I'd come here for. My mother. Maeve sat near the middle, her back straight, smile soft, eyes darting to the candles, the ceiling, the waiter. Anywhere but me. I waited for her gaze, a glance, even just the brush of concern. Nothing. She looked past me as if I were a shadow on the wall, like I wasn't even here. And that's when the ache twisted deeper. Not because they were laughing, not because they were greedy, but because the one person who knew better was silent. She always had been. The memory hit hard, so vivid I could almost feel the fabric of my childhood dress again. I was 11. Darian had poured orange soda in my backpack at my own birthday party. Said it was because I acted better than everyone. I had run to the kitchen, crying, hands sticky, notebooks ruined. Maeve had pulled me aside, smoothed my hair, and said, Sweetheart, boys tease the girls they're threatened by. Just let it go. No correction, no defense, no apology for me, just a request to be quiet. And I had listened. Back then, I thought it was strength. Now, I knew better. The plates were being cleared when Elira's voice broke through the hum. You know what I've noticed? She said, brushing imaginary crumbs off her lap. Self-made women are always the coldest, like they forget how to connect. I didn't look up. I didn't need to. The comment wasn't about women in general. It was about me. Darian laughed, of course. Rachel muttered, Amen to that. I let the words hang there like smoke. Slowly, I raised my eyes and looked at my mother again. She shifted in her seat. Her lips moved just enough to say, They didn't mean it like that. I blinked, once. And that was it. She wasn't defending me. She was excusing them, again. She whispered it low, like she didn't want to stir the pot, like my feelings were a disruption to the balance she kept trying to maintain. And in that moment, I felt something crack. Not loud, not messy, just final. There would be no scene, no shouting, but something was leaving me. Something that had tried, for years, to believe this family could change. My fork was still in my hand, but I didn't touch the dessert they'd ordered for the table. I wasn't hungry. I was unraveling, quietly, intentionally. I drifted back into memory again. Not a moment, but a pattern. The dozens of times my mother had asked me to be the bigger person, to let it slide, to not make things worse. It was always about keeping the peace, even if that peace cost me every piece of myself. I stared into my half-empty coffee, the bitter edge still clinging to the rim. A waiter passed, offering another round of wine. I didn't speak, just raised my hand in a soft decline. I heard them still laughing, heard my name mentioned under someone's breath. I didn't care enough to track who it was. I wasn't sitting at their table. I wasn't even sitting in their reality anymore. In my mind, I began stepping back, not from the table, not from the room, but from the expectations that had caged me my entire life. For the first time in years, I saw Maeve not as mom, but as a woman who had chosen silence, again and again. And no matter how much I'd wanted her protection, I could no longer excuse her absence just because she came wrapped in motherhood. They joked, they drank, they piled desserts into each other's plates, and I sat still, letting the numbness wash in. Not to escape, but to prepare. Because while they laughed, I was changing. While they circled the same game, I was stepping off the board. And when I looked at my mother one last time, her eyes finally found mine. She blinked, startled, like she hadn't expected me to still be watching. I didn't smile. I didn't flinch. She chose silence again. And now, I choose something else. The mask and the ultimatum. I didn't say a word. Just held my mother's gaze long enough for her to understand. I wasn't waiting anymore. The silence between us stretched for maybe 2 seconds. Then I stood and quietly excused myself, stepping away from the table as naturally as I could. I made my way to the lounge area off the main dining floor, where the lights were lower, the music softer, and the illusion of peace a little more believable. It wasn't about needing air, it was about not suffocating. I sat near a tall window facing Congress Avenue. The view was blurred by the reflection of the chandelier behind me. People passed by outside, free and unaware. For a brief second, I envied their anonymity. Footsteps approached. I didn't look up, I already knew. "Hey," Darian said, voice smooth like always. "You okay?" I didn't answer. He took the liberty of sitting across from me like we were old friends catching up over drinks. "You know how they are," he began, tone casual. "Loud, dumb, a little tactless, but harmless." I kept my eyes on the street. He waited a beat, then leaned in. "Look," he said, lowering his voice. "Between you and me, this whole dinner, it wasn't just about catching up. You probably figured that out already." "No kidding. But here's the thing," he continued, flashing that tired charm he used on women and investors alike. "You showing up tonight? That meant a lot. To Mom, to the family. They were never going to say it, of course. They're all too proud for that. But they notice, especially after, well, you know, the Forbes piece." There it was. He gave me a tight-lipped smile. "You've done well for yourself, Saran. We all see it." I said nothing. "And tonight? It's just a dinner. One bill. It's not about the money. It's about the gesture." He smiled like he'd just solved world peace. "You pay, we laugh, we drink. We toast to you. Everyone walks away feeling good. Win-win." I turned to face him fully. "You mean I pay, and they feel good?" He blinked, but the smile didn't falter. "Semantics." I leaned back in the chair. "So that's the plan, huh? Hand me the script and hope I play along." He chuckled, low. "Come on, Saran. Don't turn this into some kind of protest. It's family. We razz each other. We lean in. We cover when someone can't. We're all adults. You're not gonna let a couple offhand jokes ruin the night, are you?" That word again. Family. Funny how it was always weaponized when they wanted something. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't shift in my seat. "I'm not here to ruin anything," I said evenly. "But I'm also not here to fund a show I wasn't cast in." He exhaled sharply, eyes narrowing just a little. "Okay," he said, dropping the smile. "If that's how you feel." There it was, the pivot. The moment charm slid into pressure. "But just know," he continued, "if you don't step up here, it won't go unnoticed." I stared at him. "Is that a threat?" I asked. "No," he said too quickly. "It's just reality. This family talks, always has. You know how Mom is? You know how the others are. I'm trying to protect you, honestly. From the narrative, the narrative. If you refuse to do something this small," he added, "it gives them permission to say a lot worse." That was the moment I realized. He wasn't here to talk. He was here to control the fallout. I smiled, slow and careful. "You don't get to build a fire under me," I said, "and then ask why I'm sweating." He sat back like I'd slapped him. I leaned forward slightly. "And if you think I'm the kind of woman who pays hush money in the form of cheesecake and lobster, you're not nearly as smart as you think." He blinked. For the first time all night, Darian actually blinked. Then he glanced away, adjusting his shirt collar like it had suddenly gotten tight. "I'm trying to keep things from getting messy," he muttered. They already are, I said softly, but not because of me. He stood, hands on his hips, looking like he wanted to say more. Instead, he nodded once, sharper than necessary, and walked back to the table. From where I sat, I could see his shoulders tense. He rejoined the others with a forced laugh and some comment I didn't catch. I saw Elira turn toward him, her smile faltering. Maeve reached for her glass. Something was different. I hadn't won. But I'd broken the script. When even love isn't enough. I stayed in the lounge long after Darian returned to the table. The air felt heavier now. The distant clatter of forks and fake laughter didn't reach me the same way anymore. I was untethered from them, like a balloon they let go, expecting it to come drifting back. But I wasn't floating. I was watching. That's when my phone buzzed. I glanced down. It was her. Mom, calling. For a second, I just stared at the screen. My finger hovered over the green button, then pulled away. I let it ring twice more before I answered. Serene! Her voice cracked softly, barely louder than a whisper. Sweetheart, are you okay? My throat tightened. She sounded like she used to, on those rare nights when I had the flu, or after Dad left and I cried into her lap. She sounded like the mom I used to believe could fix anything. I know tonight was hard, she said, pausing. They can be a lot, but they're not bad people. They just don't always know how to handle your success. You've always been strong, stronger than them. I leaned back in the chair, eyes on the ceiling now. Is that what this is? I asked quietly. Me being punished for doing well? No, she said quickly. Don't twist my words, baby. I'm saying, you're not like them. You've got the backbone. That's why I knew you'd handle this better than they would. She meant it as a compliment, but all I heard was surrender. She was asking me to carry the weight again, wrap it up, swallow it down, and be the better person. Still, for a moment, I let myself believe her. Maybe she really was trying. Maybe this was her way of saying she saw me now, not as an ATM or a black sheep, but as her daughter. Maybe. After the call ended, I didn't move. I just stared at the dim chandelier above me, the light fracturing slightly through a small crack in the glass. Like everything beautiful in this family, it was polished, but broken. By the time I got home, it was past midnight. I didn't even bother turning on the lights. I set my phone on the kitchen counter and poured myself water, my mind replaying her words again and again. You've always been strong. That's why I knew you'd handle it. She hadn't apologized. She hadn't acknowledged her silence. But she'd called. And that had meant something, hadn't it? I went to bed thinking maybe I'd call her back in the morning. Maybe I'd invite her over. Maybe we could start from a quieter place. But morning had its own plans. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a call. It was a message. Mom. Saran, don't make this about you. Think of the family's name. Just help them out this once. That was it. One sentence. And every fragile piece of hope I had been clinging to shattered with it. Not because she asked for help, but because she said, don't make this about you. As if I was being dramatic. As if their cruelty, their laughter, their constant belittling was just a moment I had blown out of proportion. She didn't call to mend anything. She called to soften me up. The tears didn't come right away. Not out of pride. There was just nothing left in the tank. My chest was heavy, but my eyes stayed dry. I opened the message, read it twice, then slowly typed my response. I'm not your scapegoat, not anymore. I hit send. No punctuation, no room for misreading. I set the phone down, stepped away from the kitchen and into the hallway, each footstep quieter than the last. The emotional cord had snapped, not with a scream, but with a silence I no longer feared. I was done asking to be understood. Now I would make myself clear. Smile for the camera, I had made myself clear. At least, I thought I had. But clarity doesn't mean people will listen. It just means they'll find a new way to pretend they didn't hear you. I was still in the hallway, leaning against the cool wall, when my phone lit up again. A new text. Elira. Hey, I just wanted to say I'm really sorry if tonight felt weird. I know things got awkward. I still love you. You know that, right? No punctuation at the end. No ownership of what she'd done. Just vague softness wrapped in sugar, and wrapped again in self-preservation. I stared at the screen for a moment, letting the message sit there like a cheap peace offering. Weird. That's what she called it. I didn't reply. Not yet. Something about it didn't sit right. The tone was off. Too polished. Too rehearsed. I locked my phone and stood up straight, already planning to leave. But curiosity got the better of me, and as I walked slowly back toward the dining area, I opened Instagram. A notification popped up. Elira.Ray tagged you in a story. I tapped it. It was a boomerang clip, one of those cheerful little loops. The table, laughing, glasses raised, everyone smiling like it was the best night of their lives. Caption: Family over everything. I looked closer. The video had been taken earlier, just before dessert. I remembered that moment, because it was the exact second I'd gotten up to leave for the lounge. I was in the frame, kind of. You could see my elbow, half my shoulder, cut right at the edge. Like an afterthought, someone forgot to crop properly. She'd tagged me, but carefully angled the video to crop me out visually. I was there, but I wasn't. It was surgical. A curated illusion. That was never an apology. It was a setup. Text me sweetly, post me silently. It wasn't reconciliation. It was branding. I was being used as a prop in a narrative where they looked like the inclusive, loving, messy but adorable family, and I was just the blurry ghost who never fit in frame. I took a breath. It didn't steady me, it only stoked the fire. No more backing down, no more be the bigger person. I wasn't interested in size, I was interested in truth. I walked back to the table slowly, with a calm they didn't recognize on my face. Elira noticed me first. Her expression tightened just a fraction before she replaced it with a smile. That same stage smile I'd seen since we were kids. The cameras on, behave smile. She opened her mouth to speak. I didn't give her the chance. If anyone here thinks I'm just here for your highlight reel, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, but not loud enough to startle. Let me make this very clear. I pulled out my own phone, held up her Instagram post. I am not your accessory. Her mouth opened, but I didn't stop. You want me cropped out of your life? Do it honestly. Don't tag me for optics. Don't pretend you reached out when all you did was hide your insult behind a filter. Maeve whispered my name, like she was trying to calm a dog. Darian leaned forward. Serene, don't do this here. Oh? I turned to him. Where should I do it, Darian? At your next wine tasting? Or maybe during the next group text where you all pretend I'm too tense to be invited? No one said anything. I'm done playing quiet. I'm done making everyone comfortable while I bleed under the table. I sat down, slowly, in the chair I had dragged earlier. Not a full seat at the table, just close enough to remind them I'd never really left. The silence that followed felt deeper than anything anyone had said all night. Elira stared at her phone like it had betrayed her. Darian's jaw clenched. Maeve looked down, twisting her napkin into knots. And I didn't flinch. I wasn't background anymore. I was about to become the plot twist. This bill comes with a receipt. Not with screaming, not with a grand gesture, but with the kind of stillness that makes people nervous. The waiter returned, holding the leather-bound check holder like it was a crown waiting to be placed. He didn't hesitate, didn't glance around the table. He placed it directly in front of me. It landed like a gavel. For a beat, no one said anything. Then, Darian broke the silence, his tone all smug nonchalance. You got this, right? He said, stretching his arms behind his head. It's nothing for you. There it was. The trap. The moment they'd all been circling toward like vultures dressed in designer labels. I let my hand rest on the bill, didn't open it right away. I just looked around. Their expressions flickered. Rachel, with her perfected Instagram smile. Elira adjusting her napkin like she wasn't staring. My mother still looking down. Her glass now just a stem, clutched in trembling fingers. Then I opened it. $3,247. Wagyu, lobster, truffles, vintage wine, double desserts, and not a single thing I had ordered. I inhaled once, slow and shallow, then exhaled through my nose. They thought silence meant surrender. They forgot silence can be strategic. I closed the bill, slow and deliberate. Then I reached across the table and slid it gently in front of Darian. I didn't say anything, not yet. He blinked down at it, confusion flickering for half a second before his face tightened. "What's this?" he asked, though we both knew the answer. I finally spoke. "Oh, you thought I was covering this. That's cute." His jaw clenched. "You're serious?" he said, voice low. Elira leaned forward, eyes sharp. "Come on, Seren. This isn't the time for theatrics." Rachel added, "Yeah, we all agreed this was kind of your night. You were the one who said, 'to family,' remember?" "That was before you cropped me out of your family photo," I said without flinching. Rachel looked away. Elira straightened her back. "Fine," she snapped. "We'll split it. 3 ways, but not with her. She's not family." Her voice cracked just enough on the word family to draw attention from the next table over. People turned. The energy shifted. For once, their quiet rejection wasn't behind closed doors or buried in sarcasm. It was loud, ugly, public, and the restaurant noticed. Forks stopped clinking. Chatter slowed. Someone at another table whispered, "What the hell's going on?" I stood up, slow, calm. I looked down at Elira, then at Darian, then finally at my mother, who still couldn't meet my eyes. "You keep calling me not family," I said. "Let me make it easier." I took one step back from the table. "You're right." Nobody breathed. I don't belong here, not because I changed, but because I outgrew the script. Maeve looked up, lips parted like she was about to say my name, but I shook my head before she could. "You wanted me to sit quietly and pay for the privilege of being mistreated," I continued. "That was never family. That was theater." Darian muttered, "Don't make this dramatic." I turned toward him. "It's not drama. It's a receipt. You cashed in on me for years. This is just your balance due." And with that, I turned and walked away from the table, again. But this time, I wasn't retreating. I was leaving on purpose. I could feel their eyes on my back, the silence behind me louder than any insult they could throw. I didn't owe them noise, just distance. Family ends where dignity begins. They said I wasn't family. I finally believed them. I kept walking, but only a few steps. Just enough to let the silence hang. Just enough to give them time to realize what had really happened. The room around us hadn't moved, but something in the air had shifted, something final. There was no more chatter, no more clinking glasses or fake toasts. I turned slowly, one last time, and looked at the table. Nobody was smiling now. Darian's smirk was gone, replaced by that tight-lipped look he used when deals slipped through his fingers. "You're really going to do this?" he muttered, like I'd just embarrassed him at a board meeting. Elira's hand twitched on her wine glass. She glanced at the people around us. For once, she looked worried about how this might play. Not on Instagram, but in real life. No one backed her up. Rachel looked down, chewing her lip like she wanted to disappear. Velda had gone pale. And Maeve just sat there, frozen, still clutching her napkin like it could save her from the truth. They didn't expect me to call their bluff. I walked slowly to the end of the table, not rushing, not storming, just moving with the kind of clarity that doesn't leave room for interpretation. "You all sat here," I said, voice steady, "and decided I didn't belong." My eyes swept over the table. Darian flinched. "But what none of you ever asked was, do I want to?" That landed. I turned to Maeve, fully now. Her shoulders looked smaller than I remembered. You knew, I said. You knew they were setting this up, and you let them. Her mouth opened, then closed. A single tear rolled down her cheek. You didn't have to defend me, but you could have noticed me. Still nothing. From the side, Velda whispered, We don't air family drama in public. I glanced at her without moving my head. You should have thought of that before posting fake apologies and cutting me out of family photos. She shut up fast. Harlan muttered something under his breath, but it didn't matter. His glare was familiar, toothless. The collapse wasn't loud. It was quieter than I imagined. A soft implosion of years of expectations finally folding under their own weight. And maybe that's what made it hit harder. I reached into my purse and pulled out $100 bill, clean, crisp, tucked between my ID and a stick of gum. I walked to the center of the table and laid it down. This should cover the coffee, I said, and my seat. I paused, letting the sentence finish itself. Then I turned toward the exit. My heels clicked against the floor, each step louder than their silence. I didn't rush, didn't flinch, just walked, steady and whole. And then, just as I pushed the door open, I heard it. Serin! Maeve's voice, software, breaking. But I didn't stop walking. Because sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes what you need more than love is air, and space, and the dignity of knowing you finally chose yourself. The silence that heals. I never looked back, but I heard my name. And this time, I didn't stop walking. 2 days later, I woke up in my apartment, wrapped in a kind of stillness that didn't ache. There were no missed calls, no texts, no new voicemails, no digital breadcrumbs leading back to that table. Just me, the soft hum of the air conditioning, and the late morning sun filtering through half-closed blinds. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I wasn't bracing for the next thing, the next jab, the next demand, the next guilt-laced, I just need a little favor. The silence didn't feel empty, it felt earned. I sat up slowly. My body wasn't sore, but something deeper inside me felt reset, like I had crossed a bridge and burned it behind me, not in rage, but in necessity. Mid-afternoon, my phone buzzed once. A voice message. Maeve. I hesitated. My thumb hovered over the play button for a full minute before I tapped it. Her voice was softer than I expected. Tired. Cracked around the edges. Serene, I don't expect you to forgive me, and I'm not going to pretend I didn't make it worse. There was a pause, the sound of her breath hitching. I know they were wrong. I know I should have said something. I was scared. That's not an excuse, but if you never come back, I still love you. Click. No follow-up, no second message, just that. I didn't cry because I was broken. I cried because, for once, someone in that family didn't ask me for something. She just left the door open, quietly. I played the message again, then set the phone down, and didn't reply. Not out of anger, out of clarity. Some wounds heal with time. Others become part of the skin, like a scar you stop noticing until someone touches it. Later that night, I opened my laptop. My startup's dashboard lit up with numbers, graphs, real momentum. The work I'd built without a single favor. Every email, every investor pitch, every long night of questioning if it would all fall apart. And yet, here it was. Alive. Growing. I met my own eyes in the reflection of the screen. I didn't lose them, I whispered. I found myself. I closed the laptop and stood, walking to the kitchen where I poured a glass of wine and opened the balcony door. Austin's skyline stretched out in front of me, quiet, glowing, unaware of my family's theatrics. The kind of city that lets you disappear and reappear entirely on your own terms. Just as I took the first sip, my phone buzzed again. A message from Elira. A photo. The rest of them gathered around Maeve's backyard fire pit, smiling, toasting marshmallows. The caption read, "Real ones only, family first. I didn't open it, didn't zoom in to see who else was there. I placed the phone face down on the counter. I poured a little more wine, then walked back to the balcony and leaned against the railing. The city didn't ask me to smile. It didn't require an explanation. It just let me breathe. You can still love someone and still leave. Maybe you've been there, at a table where everyone smiles like nothing's wrong, while you sit there wondering how you became the outsider in your own family. I've been there too. And walking away wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I didn't leave out of anger. I left to protect my peace. Because family doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. Loyalty shouldn't come at the cost of your identity. It took me years to understand. You can love someone and still choose distance. You can set boundaries without guilt. And silence, when it comes from strength, not fear, is powerful. If this story hit close to home, drop a 1 in the comments, or let me know where you're watching from. If it didn't, that's okay. Tell me why. Your voice matters here. And if this message meant something to you, hit that subscribe button. There's more truth-telling to come, and I'm glad you're here for it.